Upgrades.
What's going on out there, YouTube family? We are back here again to talk about another movie. This one is going to be Blue Beetle, straight from DC's very own. The background of this one is Jaime Reyes is suddenly find himself in possession of a alien relic, and it's called the Scarab. Essentially, him and his family try to figure out what to do with it, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose because now the Scarab and Jaime have become one, and now he is officially the superhero that becomes Blue Beetle. So I'm here with my man with the plan, Lucas. What's up, dude?
Hey, what is going? Hey, Joe, look. One thing they did for sure here is after this screening, they gave you enough material to fully understand who Blue Beetle was, especially if you're a person like me who only knows Blue Beetle from Young Justice.
Oh man. So yeah, we're gonna dive right into it because I think we're gonna have some very interesting points. Because for me personally speaking, I did not, how do I say this nicely? I knew this was the beginning of what James Gunn is starting as far as his new DC. But I also knew that this was initially something I think was supposed to be on HBO Max. And I was kind of like, okay, well, if anything, the character is going to be there and maybe they might have a decent, family dynamic. Little did I know that they would have great family dynamic, amazing chemistry. One of I can't believe this. George Lopez's best performances and action that was freaking dope from a DC product that's not the Flash, and a practical suit. Like I actually really enjoyed this movie, and I don't know what to say. I'll leave it to you, Lucas. What were your initial thoughts?
This is the best. This is definitely the best DC movie since the first Shazam movie, and that's saying a lot. Because DC still has really good movies in between them, but this is the best DC movie since the first Shazam movie, which I think it plays in the same ballpark as the first Shazam movie. In the sense, one, a lot of the stuff is practical here. There's not a lot of special effects here. This is a budget that is skimp compared to anything else you've seen for this genre of film in the last 2 to 3 years. That I think only $120 million budget this had, because this was only supposed to be an HBO Max film. So a lot of the effects are practical here. Angel, who is the director of this film, also is someone who's great at directing kids, directing young adults, and bringing in emotions and stuff. Anybody who remembers seeing Charm City Kings, which is a movie that made me cry, and I absolutely loved it. So when I go into Blue Beetle, I didn't know what to expect. But I kind of figured if he didn't nail anything with Blue Beetle, he would nail the family dynamic, but I did not think he would nail the family dynamic this good. Oh. This is an amazing... Listen, representation is highly important in all forms of film. This family dynamic, this Latino family dynamic, feels so authentic. Mm-hmm. It is amazing. I would have never thought he would pull this off. Down to a scene, and it's not a spoiler because I'm not talking about Blue Beetle. It's a scene where Jaime goes on a kind of a job interview, and his whole family shows up. And we see how proud they are of him. And we see the grandmother praying over him before he goes in. And all you're thinking is, this feels so realistic. to
Right.
what we know of the Latino community and families and how close knit they are and how they look out for one another. It fits so well in this film. My goodness, it just caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting this film to be good, let alone close to great. And that's what this film is, because it's a formula that you've seen before, but with people who you haven't seen represented in this formula before. And that's what works. It worked with Black Panther. It worked with Wonder Woman. It works here in spades. That the point that this family dynamic is just so amazing. And George Lopez needs to be in every movie that you can get him in. He's phenomenal in this movie. If you like Michael Pena, who is the best part and element of both Ant-Man movies that are good. Now the third one was just horrible, but the first two Ant-Man movies that are good, Michael Pena is the best part of it. George Lopez is that type of character for Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
It is great. Along with, I don't know who the actor is that plays the grandmother in this movie, but my God.
Oh, she was amazing. Oh my God. She cracked, because the thing about it, and this is not a spoiler, but in the very beginning, she used little to no words, but it's her eye movements, what she tracking,
Yep.
what's going on, kind of like her sort of like, and she just kind of does her own like thing, just kind of in her own world with her little
Yep.
Walkman and her little headphones. But dude, like, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, man. And I know this is a superhero film, but I think the thing that you have to find a way of finding rhythm is connecting with something else. And
Yes.
because this family, every single individual family member is important and vital
Yes.
to who Jaime is. But that's not disregarding themselves as characters that are equally as important and valued. It's so interesting though, because like you said, you picked up the moment when he was going to a little job interview, but just when they were all like eating at the table and just giving him crap for like, you really brought a burger home? And it's like, yo, you gonna eat that joint though and share it, And I was like, that's so believable. And it's even down to his sister. Like his sister doesn't give him a lick, but you can tell there's real love there. And a lot of times you just don't get that natural family dynamic. It's just not, either one, it's not earned, or it's just not delivered well. This is delivered well and acted well, but it's just so natural. It doesn't feel forced. And I think the thing what that gets this very fascinating is that this isn't just also a superhero film. Also, like there's some supernatural elements going on. I'm gonna show you a brief something, and just their reaction to this is this out of body like situation. And it's kind of like, I was like, now there's no way they're gonna pull this off. But they in their own way, every single individual character is like, oh, let me because he's possessed. Something's wrong, and I love that, because while they're allowing the family to progress, they're also doing service to the source material. Like the source material of who Blue Beetle actually is in spades. And I'm not just talking about who Blue Beetle is in this movie, but also what he represents to other characters. And I mean, I didn't think they could tag that into a movie like this. It just kind of, it's not shoehorned in, it's just naturally there. And in the very beginning of the movie, you see little remnants of how powerful the Scarab is and kind of what its toll can be on the world.
Yes.
So I thought that was really dope from a superhero standpoint.
Yes. I think they do a great job of, one, I always question exactly how they would show the power set of the Scarab, because that was the most important part of Blue Beetle, is that from the only thing I knew of Blue Beetle, which is Young Justice, is that it was Jaime and this Scarab connecting to be one, and that it's extremely powerful on what it does here. And I think this movie does a great job of showing it. It does a great job of showing how Jaime has to fight against it at times for what he thinks is the betterment of it versus what it wants to do. which is, again, if you've seen Young Justice, we see the back and forth between it, and I didn't know if we would get that in this movie because I didn't know if they would go down the full aspect of it being alien.
Yeah.
We are so accustomed to certain things changing with characters, and for here they kept it as close to comic book accurate as they could, and it works wonders when you see it in film, down to bringing up the original Blue Beetle.
Yep.
Like, that's something else I didn't expect them to do, is bring up the original Blue Beetle. For a person like me who understood it was an original Blue Beetle, but I didn't fully understand exactly how that Blue Beetle existed versus this Blue Beetle, and this movie does a great job of explaining that to you.
Yeah.
Like, it does a good job of diving into DC lore where it needed to fully flesh out the world that it's in.
Yeah.
Come on, it's a mention of someone else who's big in DC lore. I'm not going to tell you who, because it would quantify as an Easter egg, but it's a mention of another character in DC lore that you wouldn't expect to be mentioned in this movie. But when he's mentioned in this movie, it automatically puts you in the perspective of, wow, like, this is world building of explaining who these characters are. And then you understand, like, okay, by doing this world building, we understand, like, okay, so the character Blue Beetle clearly is in a world with other characters. I know people are waiting for mention of other bigger characters, but the character I'm talking about is not a bigger character that you would expect. So no, while it is mentions of the bigger trinity of characters, the character I'm talking about is someone who I did not expect to be mentioned in this movie.
Oh boy, boy, boy. I'm gonna keep that away. I gotta talk about the look, man. Like it looks
Man.
beautiful. Like the thing is that we've seen so many. DC is guilty of it too, but more so Marvel. Of all these suits that are just so CG saturated. I haven't seen a good superhero suit honestly since the Sam Raimi Spider-Man days. And I mean, you know what? Technically, I even give it to Andrew Garfield Spider-Man as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like those practical suits, there was something about it. It made it not just feel real, but it felt like it could exist. And making this a practical suit with using layering, I think, for the helmet to make that CG, but keep the suit practical and allowing some scenes, dog. Ah,
Mm.
I was so impressed by some of the action and some of the things they did with this because I was like, some people kind of was like, oh man, I love Shang-Chi because they allowed to see the physicality and it's no like CG, but there's still a lot of splash CG
I'm about to say there's
everywhere.
a lot of CG in that movie, but okay.
Right. But with this, you can kind of tell when there's things going on, and it's like, okay, there's
Yeah.
a different subtlety with how they're trying to handle practical fights, practical VFX, and also
Yes.
merging certain moments in with CG. But part of that is they got a budget, so they're not gonna go CG crazy. They're trying to go and give you the best bang for your buck, and I think that each one of these fights is a progression of Jaime and what he brings to the table. And I think the other thing is I'm also biased because I love Cobra Kai. So
Hey.
my man from Cobra Kai, I the moment that he got casted, I was sold on
Mm-hmm.
this anyway. Like I was like, this young cat, man, he's gonna be something very special. And I think that you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna see certain semblances of what that means in this movie, not just in the emotional appeal that he gives, but I think there's a real raw there's something there. I can't really explain it.
Yeah.
There's
Mm-hmm.
certain subtle moments that
It's
he
a
gives that I was like, okay, only he could kind of pull that off for this
it's
character.
a star. It's what you call a star making performance.
Yeah.
He is electric when he's on screen because he's acting with so much confidence in his film. For someone, this is his feature film debut.
Yeah.
He's never been in a movie before this movie, and
Yep.
he was cast to play Blue Beetle. Like, that says a lot that they picked him to do this.
Yeah.
And he's amazing in this film. Like, that's something you stand on, is just how good his performance is as Blue Beetle. Even if perhaps, which I'm confused if you didn't, you don't like the film, I think you would still like his performance in this film.
Yeah.
Because it's so authentic and so realistic, his performance in this film. It's one of those, vehicles that you see an actor you don't know much about, but you understand what I'm seeing is a star being born. And that's what it feels like in this film. Like you're seeing a star being born. That's the first thing I thought of when we were watching this. It's like, wow, how come I haven't seen him in more stuff?
Right.
Like, why is this his first time when I'm seeing him on film? And afterwards, you're like, oh,
man, Cobra Kai got him
hey,
locked down.
yeah. But now you're like, okay, I'm going to see him a heck of a lot more now.
Oh yeah,
he's just too good in this film for other people not to see this film and be like, okay, he could be cast as this. He could be cast in a romantic comedy. He could be cast in a drama. He could be cast in a thriller. Like it's so many different elements of this film that they work with that everything is touched upon and everything can work with him in it. And that's something you didn't expect from this movie because Blue Beetle goes places that I would never expect this movie to go. It is emotional beats in this movie that I'm going to say, I'm going to apologize up front to all you Snyder people. It is an emotional beat in this movie that is extremely powerful. And I think it was the angle that a certain director thought he was going to with Man of Steel. But he could not execute it properly. And they executed here properly. And they gave it the proper gravitas to the moment where it will break you as an audience. Because I cried twice during this movie. Twice. And I don't do that during movies.
Yeah, I kind of looked over to the side. I was like, I'll say this to his comment. He makes a very solid case for what he's saying. Hear what Lucas is saying, that without us spoiling it, like there is a very central theme to this film. And it centers around family, lack of family, need for family, the what it does to a person's soul to not even have family. Even down to like the antagonists in certain levels. And it's very fascinating how they play with that back and forth, because throughout the whole entire film, like Jaime doesn't understand what's even happened to him, nor does he want it. And so that adds for more of the progression to why everything is happening. And yeah, they do execute it very beautifully. I'll say that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give it all the way, but I'm going to say that.
Hey, look, it's definitely more you want to say, but I think it's great if the audience can experience it the way we did.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff catches you off guard. Again, it's not a movie that's full of original ideas, but I think for this genre of film, you can no longer look for original ideas.
Yeah.
What you're looking for is these films to perfect the ideas that you've already seen. And I think the best ones of this genre of film do that in spades. And this is one of the ones that do that in spades. When you're watching it, you fully understand why, out of all the DC films that's been released this year, this is the only one that James Gunn said this character is continuing. Like the death blow for DC has been the point that they've moved on from these characters before these movies were released. But a week before The Flash came out, they asked James about Blue Beetle, and he said that's the character that's continue in the DCU. And you see this film and you finally understand, like, wow, I see what he mean by that. You see what it means for Snyder Luther King to come out and say, like, this is a film I'm looking forward to taking my family to see.
Yeah.
Because representation matters. I think that's highly important here. This is the first Latino superhero film.
Yeah.
Yes, we had it kind of with Namor, but Namor that
It's
was just a
an
lot of
right.
yeah, that's just a lot that's going on with him because he's not necessarily a hero. But this is the first time where we get the full-fledged origin hero story with Latino representation, which is highly important
Yeah.
to a lot of kids. It's going to be a lot of little Latino boys and girls who get to see themselves in this character. They get to see their families in this character. I think that's so important that people leave out. Like, to me, this is the most important family-friendly action film for Latinos since Spy Kids. Because that's what Spy Kids was. Spy Kids is a Latino action family-friendly film. And Blue Beetle is in that mode. But now they get to see a superhero on this level of someone who they could look up to and be like, hey, I would love to be this. This is my family here. People underplayed it or underestimated just how important at times before it was released that
Yeah.
Black Panther was to the African American fan base. I think they're doing the exact same thing with Blue Beetle until this Latino fan base shows up and be like, no, this is highly important to our kids of seeing this character on the big screen. Or if
Yeah.
you don't see it on the big screen, even on a small screen, the point that this character is made is important. And I personally am looking forward to what they can do with this character because I have always had questions with me not knowing much of the comic books that Blue Beetle seems to be extremely powerful.
Hmm.
How the heck is this character not mentioned as possibly the second most powerful character in DC's universe? I mean, their main universe. So don't tell me about no Dr. Manhattan or Superman type characters and all that BS. I'm talking about in the realm of the main group of characters and superheroes in DC outside of Superman. Maybe Shazam. What characters is powerful as Blue Beetle?
Yeah. It's gonna be very interesting how they move from here into gods and monsters because he kind of
Yes.
an amalgam of both. If you really know where he comes from, I do want to give a shout out to Raoul
Yes.
because this man, whether you guys know it or not, he is 68 years old, and
Yes, he is.
he he gave a very fierce performance.
Man.
But this is the weird thing to say. I don't like a lot of superhero third acts at all.
Not
But
at all.
this third act, the way he plays his character, it feels so earned how they use him. And he pulls it off well. He pulls it off so
Man.
well because the whole entire time I was just like, "Dang, I don't give the man a break. Come on, bro." Um, but yeah, he was a dope villain because I get it. I really truly get him. Um, and it makes so much sense because I think that his villain had to exist for Jaime to be who he has to be. Um,
Yes.
and I don't think I've seen that since. I mean, I don't want to bring Iron Man into this, but I don't know.
But
It's
clearly, it's a lot of comparisons to Iron Man down to the suits. Like, I
yeah,
think that's what makes Iron Man so great is that was Marvel doing it without a huge budget
yeah,
and
yeah.
left a lot of practical effects before Ant-Man's suit became before
Iron
Iron
Man.
Man's suit became magic.
Yeah,
It
I
could do
still think
everything.
the suit looked the best in the first movie to me.
Yes. Like
I'm
it's very reminiscent of that type of formula also. I think that's what works here
yeah,
is when you can adapt a good formula that a general audience can attach themselves to and give them different elements of it, it works really well.
yeah,
Everything doesn't have to be overly original. I think that's the ballpark a lot of these superhero movies get lost in, is that they attempt to be so original that it throws you off from the film. When you
yeah,
don't understand, we kind of know how the superhero journey goes. It's been written in comic books for over 100 years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Go with the simple formula here.
yeah.
But The key part is keeping the budget to a point where you don't feel the need to overload it with special effects.
Right.
Yes, there's the big fight at the end of this film, but even then, when you have the CGI in it, it's so much practical effects in it also,
Yep.
and it feels realistic. It feels so grounded. It reminded me again of the first fight in Iron Man 1, where you're like, okay, clearly it's CGI in here, but it's still done so well. I don't mind the
Right.
CGI that's in it
Yep.
instead of the overbloat that you're tending to get out of a lot of these films.
Yeah. Nah, I enjoyed Blue Beetle thoroughly. Let's go ahead and round this out. We're going letters.
Well, yes, because yes, because on my Rotten Tomato, I go by letters. So so yes, now I must give out letter grades because that's what I do on my Rotten, which you can check out on RottenTomato.com, my reviews, and same review on RottenTomato.com. Since we're both Rotten Tomato critics, you can find this out on what we think. But yes, let's go by letter grades here.
All right, I'll let you go first. What are your closing thoughts on letter grade?
So, closing thoughts. This is a highly important film for Latino representation. It's a film that's executed as close to perfect as you can get here. It is. It has a star-making performance, along with great direction, along with wow, it's a story that you've possibly seen before. It's executed in a way that you haven't seen before, and that's highly important for this film. So for me, Blue Beetle is the second best hero film of the year. Spider Verse will always be number one. It's hard to match
I was
that
about to
movie.
ask. I was about to ask.
It's hard to match that movie, but out of all the rest of these hero films that have come out this year, I think Blue Beetle is the second best one, and it's possible it's the best DC movie since Shazam. Like it has heart, emotion, action, and a comedic element that you don't see coming. That's executed perfectly beyond George Lopez being great. I think so many other people are great in this film. And it has a moment in this film that will absolutely break you. And that was enough for me to love this film. So I give Blue Beetle an A. This is a really, really good film that I think you will enjoy in theaters. And if you can't watch it in theaters, or you're still a person who don't want to go to theaters to see it, watch it on the small screen. It's literally made for both.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, George Lopez, dude. Like, what you want me to say? Like, he crushed it. No, it's very fascinating because there's been some really good superhero movies this year. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, The Flash, like you said, Across the Spider Verse, and now Blue Beetle. It's fascinating that this year actually has some really good films in it, and this is just another add to that. It's easily an A to A plus for me.
Yeah.
I think what'll be interesting to see for me is repeated watches because I feel like with Spider Verse, the more I watch it, the more I value it so much. And with
Yeah.
this, I think the family aspect of it and the subtle, the subtle foundational things that their family does,
Hmm.
not to ever condemn each other, not to ever belittle each other, but then to have like a code, a standard, to have each
Yes.
other's backs is so pivotal, man. And to kind of find a way of interjecting that into a superhero film, or maybe actually, I think I take that back. They had that and they put and interjected superhero elements around it to make
Yes.
it work.
Hmm.
Um, it's easy A to A plus for me. This is one of the better superhero films that DC has done, and it's weird
Yes.
because every single year DC comes out with a good superhero film, and now this year they made two. So,
I would
um,
go as far to say they made three this year.
did it come out with another?
I know a lot of critics didn't like it, but
What's it?
Shazam: Fear of the Gods is not a bad movie.
That was this year.
Yeah, Fear of the Gods was this year, February.
Dang. See,
Like
this
they, to
this is how
me,
stacked 2023 is.
outside of Quantumanium, I think all superhero films have had, even if I didn't like it initially, it's had a certain amount of replay value that you
Yeah.
appreciate it more. Like I did not initially like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but I think on a replay value, it has it.
Yeah.
Shazam Fear the Gods. I did not like it initially. Replay value, it has it. Flash, I don't know what's wrong with you people. I love the Flash,
Right.
and it has replay value. And Blue Beetle is up there with it. I think this has been one of the best overall years for superhero projects because Ninja Turtles is also a superhero film. If you didn't know it, it is. Get the fuck over it. It's the best movie of the year for me. Like these things exist because it's actually, which I think is really good, it's giving life to other characters.
Hmm.
Is it sustainable in the long run? Probably not, but it's still giving life to other characters for other people to grab a hold on and experience and absolutely love. And that's what Blue Beetle does here. It's in a completely different segment of the fan base that's going to go see this film that didn't feel represented before. And that's important.
Yeah.
That's something that needs to be shown on screen, and I can't wait till people understand how important that is for other characters. Even Shang-Chi, when it came out last year, it was the same exact thing. It was a superhero film for Asian kids who didn't feel represented fully
Yeah.
in other films beforehand. That's important. Outside of Black Panther, you may didn't like it, but Black Adam was a representation of black kids. They did get to see that.
Yeah.
That's important. That's if superhero films are to survive, if this genre of film is to survive, they need to understand putting a white man in a costume ain't gonna be enough at this point.
Mm.
And I understand a lot of people hate when you what they call it color switching characters. But that's because unfortunately for a lot of these characters, it's been if you're white, you're right for so long
Yeah.
that it's left out a segment of people who don't feel represented. And then you're not doing the characters that will fully represent them. Unlike here with DC with Blue Beetle of taking this character, there's no color switching here. We already knew Jaime and who he was.
Yeah.
And the point that you're making a movie of him is great. And I hope everyone else grabs hold and understand how important this is. Whether you like Miss Marvel or not, that representation was highly important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully we continue down this path because that's the most important thing now moving forward is children feeling represented in the things they see on screen.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I wanted to add, and it's not a spoiler, but if you've seen the Teen Titans movie that included Blue Beetle and Jaime's struggle with the Scarab, you get a lot more of that than I thought. And I think that
It
that is going to
that
be,
brought up. Why isn't that brought up more?
I,
I know people. I'm quick tangent before we close out here. I know people want to act like DC don't make good movies, and then you arbitrarily skip over Joker, Batman, and anything else outside of what Zack Snyder did. Anything outside of that, you completely skip over because you would rather portray the image that DC don't make good movies. Teen Titans Go to the Movies is not mentioned enough as possibly one of the best animated superhero films ever made. It's never brought up. I always get on people when you tell me DC don't make good movies, and I tell you you're leaving out a segment of films that they made that is extremely good, and you're doing it purposely because
yeah,
you did not like Man of Steel, you did not like BVS, you did not like Justice League. Like I fully understand you want you're Marvel to the core. So Marvel makes everything great. Marvel made a good movie in 2 years, but Marvel makes everything great. But at what point do we get to the understanding that the superhero genre is bigger than one company?
yeah.
When do we get to the point of realizing that one company does not do the best superhero project at this point? When will you all give Sony the credit and realize that Sony is possibly putting out the best superhero project going? And it's The Boys, which, if you didn't know, is a Sony project released on Amazon. So, yes, Sony is doing it better than everybody else, but that does not negate that even though you hate Secret Invasion as you should, you hate all this other stuff on Marvel as you should, because a lot of it has been bad. But the point that they're now attempting to do something different is great. That's what you want. The point that DC is now pivoting and trying to give you something different. Yeah, you didn't like the Flash, but you didn't like the Flash because you're mad that Ezra Miller got off on charges that you feel he should be punished for. Or you didn't like the Flash because it's not a Marvel project. But goddamn it, if that was a Quicksilver movie instead of naming a Flash movie, all you little punks would say that's a great movie. But because it was the Flash and because it's Ezra Miller, you want to say something bad about it. That's the problem. You want to discredit James Gunn while at the same time saying that James Gunn has made the best Marvel movie you've seen in years. Think about it, people. It makes absolutely no sense. I've been saying for years now, appreciate that this much project is coming out. I understand you all don't want to see Craven because why would you? Because it's a Sony project. It's probably going to be better than anything you've seen from Marvel in recent history, but you're going to still say you don't want to see it because it's a Sony project. Get that out your head at this point. Appreciate that they're still doing movies on this genre of film. It ain't gonna last forever. I keep on telling y'all that. Now, didn't listen to me in 2019 when I told you Endgame was the beginning of the end. And now you've seen all these films not make remotely close to the money that Endgame made. Then all of a sudden, all these rumors about what Secret Invasion, they're bringing back Andrew Garfield. Are you stupid? That's still a Sony character. You can't bring him back. But you all now trying to justify again Marvel's comeback, but you're still not understanding that they're trying their best. And this is what I give them credit for to do something different. Blue Beetle is something different. It's something you haven't seen before. Sit back, enjoy it, watch it, take your family to see it. Again, this genre ain't gonna be around forever. Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy it while they're taking these obscure characters and making projects of them. But I understand. I understand. I get it. Marvel did it first.
I
Let's negate everything that DC did. You got a fucking Jonah Hex movie out there that none of you people have saw. It's a movie of Jonah Hex out there that you haven't seen. It's a movie of Blue Beetle that's coming out that's been tracking low for 2 months because y'all act like y'all not excited to see it. But the moment this stuff goes away, you're going to be mad about it. Why they not making more superhero films? Because you're not going to see them anymore. Everything don't have to be this big budget extravaganza. Let these studios understand that what we want is smaller scale films that we can enjoy. If you let them know that, I think they will make it for you to see. I'm done now. My tangent is done.
Oh my god. I've not heard a Lucas tangent in about probably before the pandemic. But anywho, we're gonna go, Lucas, real quick. So, what are your top three? So, I'm gonna speculate, and if I'm wrong, let me know I'm wrong. So,
Okay.
your top three are Across the Spider Verse, Blue Beetle, and The Flash.
No, because I consider Ninja Turtles a superhero film.
So,
So my top three are Ninja Turtles, Across the Spider Verse, and
then
Blue
Blue
Beetle.
Beetle.
Ninja Turtles is a superhero film. I don't care what anyone says. They are teenage mutant ninja turtles. Heroes in a half shell. Ain't no way that's not a superhero film.
I mean, technically, they were in the comics, you guys. So,
Yes. Yes.
anywho,
But
we're
if,
gonna
if
go.
I was go by the traditional, then yeah, Flash would be number three. Yeah, Flash would be number three. Guardians is catching up though. I've now seen it twice since it's released on digital. And while the tone is still an issue, I appreciate it more than I did initially seeing it. Ant-Man is the worst superhero film of all of them, though. Clearly, easily the worst.
And on that note, we're gonna go. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell button if you enjoyed this. Please make sure you also check out our shorts, because with our shorts we do first reactions, and we will let you know. If you just want a brief thought on it, you can see our shorts. If you want this, just our full reviews, you can see it here. And as Lucas mentioned, we are both on Rotten Tomatoes, as well as we are coming out with a lot.
Check out
more
reviews.
content.
Check out reviews and recaps from not only Team JVS, but everyone affiliated with Team JVS, which is Ronan, who's paid Ronan Unchained, his page, Jedi Mike's page. Both of them are amazing members of Team JVS, who also does independent content. So check them out too, because hey man, we are a conglomerate that is looking to take over the world as quickly as humanly possible.
We're gone. Bye, people. Oh my God.
Filing out the top of
I can see the skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline.